Hello everyone, my name is Christian Ross and I'm the newest member of Ross Title Escrow here in Naples, Florida. Wanted to introduce myself. I am a practicing attorney. I've practiced the last 10 years up in Atlanta. I actually have some experience building subdivisions as a developer. I had a commercial development company and we did some commercial office space, and then for the last 5 years I've actually been doing residential and commercial real estate transactions as a closing attorney. And I'm using all of that experience in coming back to Ross Title and Escrow together with my dad and the wonderful staff that we have to hopefully improve your experience, answer your questions, and just continue the wonderful service that we've always provided. And one of the things my dad and I really enjoy doing is education. What we hope to do over the next year or so is do a lot of classes, a lot more articles. If you're not already signed up for them, we do a lot of articles already. But do some classes, have them available online, have some in person, maybe even be able to give CE credit at times. But just education, because together, if we can learn this and go over it together and strategize, you'll be best prepared and your clients will get the best experience possible. And to that end, I really want to go over the newest NABOR form, one that I have a lot of experience using, and that is the addendum to sales contract purchase price escalation. So this is essentially used when there is a escalation clause that the buyer is wanting to make sure that their offer gets the most attention. So let's look at the form. If you haven't seen it already, you can download this and take a look at it with me, but I'll put it up on the screen. In fact, when you look at the first part of this, it says it right at the top. Buyer is advised to consult with buyer's mortgage lender and legal counsel prior to signing this form. Not only should the buyer talk to their advisors, but I also would recommend that you talk with your broker. So we want to make sure, because this is a new form, because there are some downsides with using these forms, that you've got all the support of your broker and that you've kind of gone through this ahead of time. So do that and then have your buyer reach out to their representatives as well. But let's get into the meat of this. If seller receives one or more competing offers for the property from bona fide, arm's length, third-party buyers with terms acceptable to seller, and they're calling those the competing offers, which have a purchase price equal to or greater than the purchase price stated in this offer, then the purchase price in this offer shall automatically increase by a certain amount, the escalating factor, in excess of the highest purchase price in such competing offers, not to exceed a purchase price of blank, and we'll call that the maximum purchase price. Now, importantly, if you don't fill out these fields, it says it in the parentheses, if blank, this addendum shall be of no force and effect. So you can't leave the maximum purchase price or the cap. Don't leave the cap out of this. Make sure to fill in those two fields to ensure that this is used as part of your offer. But let's go over this one more time. They are saying if there are competing offers, now they call them, here's the definition, bona fide, arm's length, third-party buyers. Now what that means is that these are legitimate offers from third parties. Arm's length meaning they're someone that is not related to the seller. So if these are legitimate offers, that's above what I'm offering, then I'm willing to go over that amount by a certain blank, and it could be $500, it could be $1,500. Personally, I never really saw anything more than say $2,500 as the escalating factor. So I would probably suggest you keep it somewhere under $5,000 in the very least, and then you put a cap or the maximum purchase price. So let's do an example. Let's say the purchase price is $500,000, but it's going to have multiple offers. You saw all the other cars at the the showing appointment, and so you said, look, I'll give you $500,000, but I don't want some other offer to beat me out by a few $1,000s. I will go $1,000 over the next best offer, or the best offer. So let's say there was another offer at $515,000. Well, in this example, I will go to 516. So I'm going to go $1,000 above that highest offer, as long as it was a legitimate, bona fide, arm's length transaction. So let's keep going. If the increased purchase price exceeds the maximum purchase price, then the buyer's offer shall be the maximum purchase price. So in no event will that offer go above that cap. So in going back to that example, we offered $500,000. We said we would go $1,000 over the next offer or any the other competing offers. But let's put a cap. Let's say the cap was $520,000. So it would go to 516, no problem. But if someone else had an offer of $520,000, the most it would go up on our escalation would be to 520. So you'd have two $520,000 offers. Seller represents and warrants the buyer that each such competing offer is a bona fide arm's length transaction. In fact, if we go before that, so if any competing offer causes an escalation of the purchase price, seller shall provide buyer a copy of such competing offer. So what does that mean? What that means is that before we have a formal contract here, at some point before closing, the seller is going to have to give a copy of that other competing offer. So if we were going on that $515,000 was the other offer, and because of our escalation addendum we're going to go to 516, that seller is going to be required to disclose the presence of that other contract. They're going to have to share it with you. Now, if we think about it, and maybe you've had this experience, what's the best way to do that? So as a listing agent, you might be worried about, detailing someone else's offer. There might be some concerns about confidentiality. So you might want to redact certain information as to who the buyers are, who what the special conditions are. But you have to kind of be careful because this form says that the seller shall provide a copy of it, not a redacted copy. So let's think about it reasonably, and this could change as more and more people use this form. But you may want to specify in the contract as to how you're going to receive the copies of the other offers. And in my experience, one of my favorite things to do, even as a buyer, one of my favorite things to do was to get on the phone with the broker of the other agent that was doing the competing offer. So if the other competing offer comes in at 515, maybe you show me the contract, maybe you don't. I don't know if I care so much, but I do want to talk to that agent's broker and just call and say, hey, one of your agents made an offer on this property. Can you confirm the amount and that it was a bona fide third-party arm's length transaction? To me, I think that's great. And if the listing agent and the broker are willing to lie to you over that, then there's not much that you could do, in pen and paper that would help it. I think we just got to get people on the phone. So if you have questions about that, call me, because I have done this a lot. In Georgia, these things are very common. Escalation clauses, because there's so many competing buyers for properties in Georgia, in Atlanta where I came from, we had to use escalation clauses. But let's talk about the cons. What are the downsides with using an escalation clause? The downsides are kind of obvious. One, it's really hard to verify the identity of the other offer. That's problematic, and it will always be a problem. Two, aren't you showing the seller kind of all your cards? That, hey, I'll offer you to 500, but I really would offer 520 if you got another buyer. What is the seller going to think of that? And specifically for this market in Collier County and Lee County, you have a lot of very wealthy sellers. They may look at that 520 number and say, well, that's the one I want. I'm just going to hold out until I get that if my property's worth that. So, be careful. You might be better off just offering 515 and telling the listing agent, hey, we're here. Don't let this go without us. Don't sell it to anyone else without coming to me first. So that's kind of the big thing, is that it is hard to verify, but more than not, it's you're showing the seller a lot of your mindset and what you're willing to pay, and that may kill a deal. It may make it difficult. And then finally, it can be difficult for other parties to know what the final price really is. Because if you actually sign this, going back to the form, it has both buyer signature lines and seller signature lines. If you just sign this, so the buyer sends the offer with this addendum, and the seller, are they just going to sign it, or are they going to counteroffer? Well, I'll make a suggestion. I would suggest that a seller would counteroffer, or that we do a clean copy of the agreement, because I don't want the first page of the sales contract to say $500,000, and then if you jump to page 16 of the contract, you see this addendum, and you just don't know what the final price could have been. Maybe it's $516, maybe it's $500. It's hard to tell. So I would probably recommend, if I'm the listing agent and I get an offer like this, that once I've chosen who I want to work with and we've kind of negotiated a final price, I'm probably just going to do a whole new contract without this form in it. I'm just going to do, all right, here's our new NABOR contract, and we're going to put $516,000 into the purchase price, and we're just going to leave it at that. So that's kind of the other big thing that I would point you to, that it's more of an invitation to negotiate rather than something that you'll just sign on the spot. Let's keep going. There's one more part I wanted to look at. It says, if the escalation factor is invoked, the additional purchase price amount, as determined by the preceding paragraph in this addendum, shall be added to paragraph 1E with the balance of the purchase price payable in cash at closing. The proceeds of mortgage in paragraph 1B and 4B, financing contingency, if any, shall remain as originally written. So what that means is the buyer is assuming the risk that if it doesn't appraise, the buyer's going to have to pay the difference in cash. So going back to our example, $500,000 offer escalates up to $516, and the buyer was planning on putting 20% down. So normally, if it was a $500,000 deal, the buyer would be putting $100,000 down, getting a mortgage for $400. But if we're escalating up to $516, the buyer, but per this form, is taking on the risk that they're going to have to cover that extra $16,000 that would be left over that may not appraise. So that's a big thing for buyers to understand. What is my cost going to be? What can I afford if it doesn't appraise? Because as we escalate, as we fight, we're probably going into territory that this market hasn't seen as far as pricing. So going to that example, if it appraises for $500, the buyer's going to have to put their $100,000, get $400 from the lender, and then $16,000 is left, which the buyer will fund. The lender won't increase their loan amount unless it were to appraise at that new number. So I hope this was helpful. This is just step one of my introduction to you. What we all strive for is for our buyers and sellers to be best prepared when things like this happen. If you're going to go to a showing appointment this weekend and the street is lined with cars, know that maybe this is a form I want to look at. Let's at least bring it up to my buyer and say, hey, this is something we need to consider. Here are the pros, here are the cons, and if you have questions, as always, just call us. Again, my name is Christian Ross with Ross Title Escrow, and our phone number is 239-434-7700, or you can email me, christian@rosstitle.com. I am so excited to be here in sunny South Florida. If you need me, please give me a call. Thank you.